So, the PlayStation 5 has been hacked not once, but twice. On Sunday, the 6th of November, it was a big day. The PS5 is just coming up to its first year of release, and pretty much out of nowhere, there was a 1-2 punch from two different heavyweights in the community. First is security researcher known as The Flow, who is very well known if you're involved in the PS Vita scene for things like the Henkaku exploit. And the second is the legendary group Fail Overflow, who famously pwned the PlayStation 3 all those years ago by discovering the private keys, as well as their involvement in the Switch hacking scene, exploiting the PS4 and running Linux on it, the Nintendo Wii. The list goes on. Fail Overflow have been around for many, many years. But let's not get too excited yet, because even though the PS5 has been hacked, it's still very early to discuss what this means, and it might be a while, if ever, before we see anything actually get released to the public. But it also means that both of these exploits can be disclosed to Sony and patched even before they are made available to the public. But first, let's go ahead and talk about what has been discovered here and what ramifications it means and what potentially this could mean for the future of the PS5 homebrew scene. Well, The Flow posted on Sunday what seemed to be an innocent screenshot of the PS5 system settings menu. But on closer inspection, the debug menu is present, and this was done, mind you, via PS5 Share. Debug settings are only available if you have access to a development kit or a test kit. Now, the PS5, the PS4, the PS3 all have the additional debug menu if you have access to that hardware. But this is not something that is available on regular retail hardware. Now, this is a screenshot that The Flow posted from a retail console, and I might add, this is running on the latest firmware 4.03. Now, he followed up this tweet with a quick response saying that there is no plans for disclosure and no ETA, which I think is a smart move. Although many of us would love to know how to pull this off, the main takeaway here is that there is indeed a way to exploit the PS5 on up-to-date, as at least of the making of this video, firmware. Now, The Flow is a respected member of the community, and this should be considered 100% real. I already saw some follow-up tweets saying this wasn't real. Trust me, this is 100% legitimate. Now, I think others are probably going to start taking a look at this based on what The Flow has posted on Twitter. But if this wasn't enough, a second blow to Sony, as mentioned, came from legendary group Fail Overflow with a tweet that showed a fully decrypted 4.03 firmware file. And they quickly confirmed via a follow-up tweet that all PS5 root keys had been extracted. Now, these keys, mind you, can be used to both encrypt and decrypt data, and all this was done via software. In other words, there's no hardware dumper or anything that was soldered onto the board. Now, this is a pretty massive discovery, and it has shades of Fail Overflow totally pwning the PS3 all those years ago.
And with a private key, you can sign things.
But just like the Flows find, Fail Overflow were not disclosing their method, so we'll need to wait and see if there is ever a public release or at least a write-up of this. My guess is that they will probably take this exploit they've found and refine it to enable Linux to boot on the PS5. This is something that has been a motivator for Fail Overflow for many, many years, and the ability to boot into Linux has been done by them on many different consoles over the years. Now, I did talk to The Flow briefly because I wanted to get some clarification on a couple of things, and the big question I asked was, are these two exploits connected in any way? And he mentioned that they were not. These are two completely separate things, and I want to stress this is a big blow to Sony that have left themselves exposed to these types of security flaws. Now, of course, it's almost certain that a firmware update can and probably will address both of these issues, but the damage has been done. With a decrypted firmware, it's now possible to reverse engineer and locate other potential exploits and additional weak points. Now, to be very clear, right now, these discoveries, while massive and can open up the PlayStation 5 for homebrew, there's still no way to run PS5 homebrew, there's no homebrew enabler, and there's no custom firmware. There are no tools to build homebrew PS5 apps at this time. So this is still very much in the discovery phase. This is still very much the early days, but it's also unclear that these exploits will ever get released to the public. Maybe they've been submitted to Sony, and we don't know if any of this will even matter once Sony puts out some firmware updates. But the good news is these exploits exist on 4.03 at least. So if you are someone that is interested potentially in a jailbreak or an exploit for PS5, then I would recommend, if you can, and I definitely understand that it's very difficult to get a hold of a PlayStation 5, but if you are interested, maybe you want to keep your system on 4.03 and see what comes of this. This may be something that we don't hear about for another 12 months, or we never hear from again. It's really difficult to speculate, but the great news is exploits do exist, and there's probably others now that are very much interested in taking a close look at the PS5 and trying to find ways to exploit it. And I think at the end of the day, I would guess that we'll see more coming out of the PS5 at some point, but I just don't know when that will be and what that will entail. Now, of course, on the PS4, it's certainly possible to exploit your console if you're up to a certain firmware revision. And Sony, again, simply just updates their firmware to close out these exploits. So if there is an exploit that is released to the public or a homebrew enabler, then I would probably think it's going to be very much the same way that the PlayStation 4 is handled. But that is all speculation for now. I just wanted to cover this real quick because this is pretty exciting news. If you're involved in the homebrew communities, the PS5 has been hacked. Will we see the fruits of those exploits released to the public? It's very, very early to say. I don't know anything more than what I've seen on Twitter. I've kind of asked around to hear what other things are going on, but I haven't really come up with any other information. But rest assured, if I do hear more about what's happening in the PS5 scene, I'll definitely report back with updated information. But pretty exciting news, and yeah, let's see what comes out of this. It may be nothing, or there may be some more to come from this. If I was to speculate, I think we'll hear more from Fail Overflow when they're ready to disclose the entire thing, but it may not be for a while, but we'll see what comes out of all this. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. The PS5 has been pwned. When we'll see that, I don't know, but look, I think if I was Sony, I'd be feeling a little bit nervous. There's definitely some shades of, the console getting rushed out very, very quickly, maybe more than what they really wanted to, because it seems like they've regressed a little bit. The PS4, for the most part, was a pretty secure system, but, if we're already talking about 1 year, less than 1 year into the life of the PlayStation 5, and these types of exploits are being discovered, they'll most likely respond and patch these things, assuming they know what the actual exploits are. But I would probably expect that these do get disclosed to Sony and that loophole does get closed. But for now, guys, stay on 4.03 if you can, if you're interested in potentially seeing what comes out of this. But exciting times ahead, and I definitely think there will be more to come. But that'll do it for this episode. Just a quick one for today. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.